Kash is nominated and confirmed to be the FBI director. I will fully admit in this stream that I continue to have a deep dislike for federal policing, so Kash Patel is not on my radar as a good person, but we'll talk about what the confirmation deal is, the problem that Democrats have with him, which is vastly different than the problem that I have with him, and where this goes and what this could mean for our country going forward. And to the people who are just saying that he's going to do political retribution and an insurrection and everything else, I can say, catch me outside. How about that? In other news, yeah, you forgot about that meme until just now. I guarantee you did. In other news, an email hit federal workers' inboxes over the weekend, asking them simply to describe 5 things that they did over the week. A large amount of wailing and gnashing of teeth went screaming up through the masses. We're going to talk about what happened with it. Maybe 5 things that I did throughout the week and my work week, and what the I keep wanting to say conversation, but that's not the word that I'm looking for. What the comparison is. I haven't even started drinking yet. What the comparison is with the private sector. So we'll go over what's happening there, what we do with that, and where this goes. Janet Mills, the governor of Maine, and Donald Trump get into a massive pissing match over the week. The only problem with this is, while Janet Mills is a hero to the progressive movement for standing up to evil Orange Man, her approval rating in Maine tells me she's not as safe in her position as one might think, so we'll go over that and what's happening there. And Kathy Hochul threatens to fire a large number of correctional officers, not fire and arrest rather, a large number of correctional officers in the state of New York for striking for better pay and better benefits. Is this going to work out for her? We'll see what happens and where this goes. It is going to be all of this and much more over here on Contemporary. So strap yourselves in, find some friends. Apologize for starting late. Errand had to be run and, well, nothing else had to be there, but we're still here. Get some dinner, grab some friends, because we grow by word of mouth, and likes and subscribes as well. And I am Blue, Daba Dee, Daba Die, and I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, Ed Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is J. Edgar, and we've got a normal news week this week. I know that the last couple weeks have been cram-packed because, well, I took 3 weeks off because I bought a new studio that happened to have a house attached to it. So we had to go get everything moved in, get internet set up. That was the hardest part, is because, well, I get the chance to live in a rural area and not have to be close to a major city for the first time. And I guess I am close to a major city still, but I get to be out in a rural area, so fighting with internet where Spectrum doesn't have a stranglehold for the first time in a long time was a lot of fun. But we got caught up with it. We actually got through all the news last week, so we are on a regular schedule this week, and there is plenty. So, yep, we'll be going over all of this over here on Contemporary, so strap yourselves in, grab some snacks, grab a friend, grab a drink. Well, don't grab a drink if you're like me and have to, well, I don't have to work tomorrow, that's why I have a drink, but if you're like me and a little sip of alcohol makes it so that you cannot wake up the next morning, don't grab a drink. You gotta get up and go to work tomorrow. I don't, so I'm grabbing myself a drink. But yeah, let's have some conversations. Let's talk about the news. As always, some selling of the wares before we go. Now, as I've said, and I did let it slip in the intro, I don't do the like, comment, subscribe, or like Bridget Fedesi does, and touch my bells and buttons. I mean, if you want to touch my bells and buttons, you'd have to fight with Palm for that one. But that does help on the algorithm, not necessarily for the video, because if you're on YouTube, this will be privated after we're done here. So this will not be, but there will be a re-upload of this over on YouTube with some of the ums and ahs edited back out, and if there's any hiccup with the internet, that gets edited back out too. You can catch us on the audio platform, but if you want to help out on the live stream, the best thing that you can do is chat to your heart's content, because the more chats fly through, the more we get pushed up to the front of the algorithm on all the platforms: YouTube, Rumble, Kick, Twitch, DLive. I went back to DLive this week. So if you guys want to help me out, that is the best thing you can do, is have the conversation about what we're talking about. I try to get to all the chats. When it gets busy on some nights, I don't get to it, and I apologize for that, but that does help me out a lot, you guys. That helps me out more than anything else you can do on this channel. So chat. Chat like we were doing in the Discord. We'll be talking, I think, a little bit about the Discord on things I like and things that I hate later on, too. It's not on the screen, obviously, because I can't show the Discord by my own rules. But we'll be talking a bit about what happened there this week and how everybody's friends now again. So, yeah, we've got that going here. But we'll get down to the news. If you are a loyal Ed Head, you will notice on your audio platform, on Friday, we dropped a conversation with myself and the R-rated conservative known as Primo de Petrillo. Petrillo. He corrected me. He says he's Italian, not Hispanic. So Primo de Petrillo. Go and check that out on Spotify. The link is in the Discord, and it's also over on X if you want to go check that out. It was a great conversation. We went everywhere, and he was one of my first really political guests on the Ed Talk side of things. So we talked a lot about Trump in Canada. We spent 40 minutes talking about Cobra Kai. So that was a lot of fun. On Friday, we get an episode that drops between myself and the wonderful Katie Zed, my former co-host. So that'll be coming up this week. We've already pre-recorded this, so that's already happened. And it was a good conversation. It got a lot more serious than I thought it was going to. But there were some real topics there. I'm very, very happy with how that turned out. That will get added up to the audio platform this week. I do have one spot I want to edit out, because she had to step away to go turn the thermostat down, and that's just dead air on the thing. But that'll get edited out before we get there, so go and check that out. That was a great conversation as well. And also make sure you go check out Katie Zed's True Crime channel. She does awesome work. Friend of the show, of course. And go check out the Daily Ignoramus over on Twitch, YouTube, Rumble. Go check that out as well. Steven focusing more back on his music career, but still a great friend of the show. And with that, we're done selling the wares. Let's get down into the news. Bring up the news scene, and then we will go and check the live chat for you guys. All right. Let's see what we got. Mogwai is here. Big One is here. Palm is here. Mogwai says, I grabbed some friends once. Unfortunately, they were not my friends. People screamed and cops were called. I would not recommend. Was that the Mogwai, or was that his roommate, Lindsey Graham? Small Human says, hello. Hello to Small Human as well. Mog says, can I touch his bells and button? Palm, that's to you. You got to answer that one. Big One with, I can't tell what emoji that is. I might have to go over to Twitch to see what that is. By the way, if you want to, if you're on the Twitch side, you can go play with my emojis too. Those are fun. I think he's cringing. I think that's what he's doing. All right, here comes the news. The news. All right, the title card of today's show from Fox News, which is ironic because I still own from my liberal days a sticker. I don't know where it is. Palm, remind me, and I will go and find that. I still own a sticker that says "Turn Off Fox." We got to go find that somewhere because, well, it's funny because I use Fox from time to time on here. But from Fox News, FBI nominee Kash Patel confirmed in a narrow Senate vote. This is from Morgan Phillips and Brianna Depish. The Senate on Thursday voted 51-49 to confirm Kash Patel as the FBI director. Cash me outside, how about that? Be honest, you didn't remember that meme until I brought it up. I almost forgot about it at that point. At the point that we're at right now, at least. Senator Mitch the Turtle Man McConnell voted yes on the conservative firebrand's confirmation, even while moderates Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins voted no. Vote to invoke cloture began 2 hours of debate on the nominee, passed 51-47 earlier on Thursday. Members of the Senate Judiciary Committee voted earlier this month, 12-10, to advance Patel to the floor for a vote. Still, Patel faced a rockier path to confirmation, even in the Republican majority chamber, after Democrats on the panel used their political weight to delay Patel's confirmation vote earlier this month. Top Judiciary Democrat Dick Durbin, who is a dick, his name is fitting, claimed on the Senate floor that Patel had been behind recent mass firings at the FBI, citing what he described as a highly credible whistleblower reports indicating Patel had personally directed the ongoing purge of FBI employees prior to his confirmation, which is impossible because he had no power to purge employees before his confirmation. Ray was still the director before his confirmation. But that was sharply refuted by Senate Republicans who described the allegation as a baseless and politically motivated attempt to delay Patel's confirmation, and by a Patel aide who described Durbin's claim as categorically false. This person told Fox News Digital, which would be, by the way, an unnamed source, "Mogwai, where's the cat? Bring us the cat." That Patel flew home to Vegas after his confirmation hearing and had been sitting there waiting for the process to play out. Patel, a vociferous opponent of the investigations into Trump and one who served at the forefront of Trump's 2020 election claims, vowed during his confirmation hearing last month that he would not engage in political retribution against agents who worked on the classified documents case against Trump and other politically sensitive matters. But his confirmation comes at a time when the FBI's activities, leadership, and personnel decisions are being closely scrutinized for signs of politicization or retaliation. Which is weird. Because we just spent 4 years with politicization and retaliation. And 4 years prior to that. And I would honestly say, given the activities of Lerner and the agencies that she probably had to use to lean on her political opponents, and Clinton and the agencies that she had to use via the administration to lean on her political opponents, I would say that it would go back probably almost 16 years, the politicization and retaliation coming from the FBI. Thousands of FBI agents and their superiors were ordered to fill out a questionnaire detailing their roles in the January 6th Selfie Fest, prompting concerns of retaliation or retribution. A group of FBI agents filed an emergency lawsuit this month seeking to block the public identification of any agents who worked on the January 6th Selfie Fest in an attempt to head off what they described as potential retaliatory efforts against personnel involved. There will be no politicization at the FBI, Patel told lawmakers during his confirmation hearing. There will be no retributive action. So there are a few things that go along with this, and of course, our friends on the left are wailing and gnashing their teeth based on the fact that they believe that this will be a politically motivated, retributive administration for the FBI. I have some thoughts on this. Now, my first thought has got to be the funniest thing that I came up with when I was thinking about this, and the fact that it was Kash Patel, and the fact that we spent a very, very large amount of time screaming and crying about H-1B visas. That's right. What was the first thing that we talked about? Over on X, sometimes in the Discord. For some people who use the Boomer book, over that. There was a protracted argument 2 weeks before Trump's not his confirmation, he was already confirmed, but 2 weeks before his inauguration over what to do about H-1B visas, with a lot of people coming out against Indian Americans. And now those same people, who had all sorts of things to say about Indian Americans at the time, I might add, think that Kash Patel is the greatest fucking thing that's ever happened. I got news for you guys. Patel is not an anglicized name by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't really care, honestly, with Kash, because partially I don't know anything about the guy. I know that he was in the Obama administration. I know that he worked a bit hand in hand with the 2020 election claims, the denialism that went there. So he's been kind of on both sides of the political aisle. I don't necessarily trust him as far as I can throw him. A lot of people seem to. There's a lot of stuff that goes on with this guy. And I'm sure that he was everything the left wanted and could ever have wanted when he was working with the Obama administration in the same or similar role. But one of the things, and I posted it out on X, was that no matter what it is that we have to say about Kash Patel, whether we're talking about whether or not he's going to politicize the FBI, whether it's going to be whether he goes for retributory actions against FBI agents that were involved with the investigations in January 6th, I do want to address that a little bit as well. Whether or not he goes after prominent Democrat donors, prominent Democrats who didn't get a preemptive pardon, or any of the A above, or whether he guts out the FBI and changes its mission and stops it going after the individual people that were otherwise being harassed by the FBI. No matter what happens with any of this, at all, anywhere, the first thing that we have to remember is a federal police force that has the direct access to bring legal action against individual citizens is unconstitutional. Full stop. Unconstitutional. It doesn't matter how Kash Patel reforms it, as long as they can individually arrest individual citizens without going through their state and local agencies. The Constitution has been violated. The FBI needs to be dismantled on a constitutional basis. It was actually constitutional for its original inception during the bootlegging time, although one would argue that the bootlegging, the laws, and really honestly the 18th Amendment that went along with it, one would argue that that in and of itself was unconstitutional, but hey, they put it into the Constitution somehow, because a lot of that booze was going across state lines. So yes, there was a reason for the FBI when it was incepted. Did you know that? The FBI was meant to be a temporary agency to help to combat the bootlegging that was going on because of the 18th Amendment and the prohibition of alcohol. It was supposed to be disbanded with the 21st Amendment. And yet, here we are, debating whether or not Kash Patel can use the FBI. Now, I want to talk a bit about the fact that the political retribution side of things and the fact that they're trying to right now go after the questionnaire for January 6 investigations. Now, any punishment that would come from using the FBI to investigate the January 6 case is going to be displayed as retribution against political enemies. Because whether the mainstream media will let you know this or not, that was a highly, highly, highly politicized investigation. It was using the levers of government under a Democratic administration to go after predominantly Republican voters. I don't know that anybody can't find a problem with that, but we do have optics to deal with. To see and say, hey, if we do go and punish these people, then it's going to be considered as a retribution. Now, with that being said, the questionnaire, and I don't know what was in the questionnaire. I don't know how specific they were demanded to be on their roles during the January 6th investigation. But if Kash does it right, and let's be completely honest, I have very, 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 very little indication that he will. If Kash does it right, then he can do what I have been hoping for with a lot of these politicians that our mainstream media tell us Trump is going to use the powers of government to go after. We can take some time and get some transparency out of this. You know, find out what actually happened, and just like the politicians who will then be relegated once all their stuff is out in the open to never be in a position of public power again or public trust again, even if we don't arrest the FBI agents who were involved in the January 6th investigation, who were involved in guiding people into the building, who were involved in hurting them, and who were involved in going through and kicking down doors of little old grannies, to bring them to justice for walking around with a camera confused in the rotunda. I mean, the court of public opinion will take care of these people faster than the court of justice will. I don't care if the politicians that orchestrated January 6th go to jail. I don't care if the politicians who have been using the levers of governments against political enemies go to jail. I don't care if the FBI agents who investigated this go to jail. I just want to know. I want the transparency. I want to know what happened. Let the public see it all, and let the public decide what your fate is going to be. I don't know that Kash is going to do that. I don't necessarily know what the questionnaire is for. I'd like to see the questionnaire. If anybody can get a copy of the questionnaire that the January 6 agents got, asking them to detail their role in the January 6 investigation, please do not hesitate. Put it in the Discord. Because I want to see that shit. I want to know what's in there, and I can probably get an idea of where it's going to go if I see this. The Mogwai's cat was here, said meow. Mogwai says, no, Mr. Kennedy, you should drive with the top down in Dallas. The weather will be great, and the people love you. There's nothing to worry about. The rumors of political operatives are unfounded. Hopefully we'll be getting that report at some point soon. I've got an article, not on that, but the Epstein files in the stack. Oh, this is one of my favorite songs ever recorded. And yes, I like almost every version of it. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. I do like the cringy ukulele version of that song, too, by the way. If you don't like it, you can catch me outside. How about that? Alright, so there's Fox News talking about Kash Patel. Let's grab one from the Associated Press. Because, I mean, the Associated Press, and I'll refrain from using their nickname for this one time. The Associated Press actually used to be one of the more respected names in news aggregation. It was literally just a news wire, where they picked up articles from everywhere else and put it all together. It wasn't what it's become today. For those of you listening on the audio platform, they have to put this in that first line. A Trump loyalist. Kash Patel is confirmed as FBI director by the Senate despite deep Democratic doubts. Ooh, it's scary. From Eric Tucker. The Senate on Thursday narrowly voted to confirm Kash Patel as director of the FBI, moving to place him atop the nation's premier federal law enforcement agency that should not exist. I will still stand to that standard. Despite doubts from Democrats about his qualifications and concerns he will do Trump's bidding. Ooh, Trump's bidding! And go after the Republican president's adversaries. You know, like Ray did under Garland. I cannot imagine a worse choice, said Dick Durbin. Well, you wouldn't have been able to imagine a worse choice until the confirmation was denied, if it was denied, and he went on and picked the next one. That's part of the problem with this, and I talked about a bit about this. I don't remember if I talked about it on Contemporary, but I talked a bit about it while I talked about it on one of the recordings that I did this week. I think I talked about it with the RRC. Actually, not on Contemporary. One of the problems with that is Malcolm X could be resurrected. I really need to go back and turn the sound on my phone. I'm doing the Instagram recording from there, so that's why I haven't gone back and stopped it. I could have done that in the title card, but I forgot about it. Malcolm X could be pulled up from the ground. We could have a miracle of medical technology, and Malcolm X could be resurrected with all of his memories from his entire life, his full political ideology still in place, just like he never died. And he could be appointed to be the next FBI director, and liberals would find something wrong with it. I cannot imagine a worse choice, Dick Durbin told colleagues before the 51-49 vote by the GOP-controlled Senate. Collins and Murkowski were the lone Republican holdouts. A Trump loyalist, ooh, evil, who has fiercely criticized the agency, will now lead. Patel will inherit an FBI gripped by turmoil as the DOJ over the past month has forced out a group of senior bureau officials and made highly unusual demand for the names of the thousands of agents who participated in the investigations related to the January 6th Selfie Fest. Patel has spoken of his desire to implement major changes at the FBI, including a reduced footprint in D.C. and renewed emphasis on the Bureau's traditional crime-fighting duties, rather than intelligence-gathering work that has come to define its mandate over the past 2 decades as the national security threats have proliferated. That just means people on the ground that they don't like. And again, a reminder that any federal policing is automatically unconstitutional. The Mogwai saying, Lindsey Graham is wondering, what's the Constitution? It's that document that's supposed to rein in the government. But he's also echoed Trump's stated desire for a reprisal, raising alarms among Democrats for saying that he was nominated so that he would come after anti-Trump conspirators in the federal government and the media. In a statement posted after the vote on social media platform X, Patel wrote that he was honored to be confirmed as the 9th director of the FBI, an institution that he said had a storied legacy. The American people deserve an FBI that is transparent, accountable, and committed to justice. The politicalization of our justice system has eroded public trust, but that ends today. He said his mission as director was to let good cops be cops and rebuild the trust in the FBI. I wish that we still had Ron Helton here from the old days. He got mad when I told Spartan, who wound up being in a Fed. It's ironic that Ron Helton left because a known Fed was in our Discord or in the chat saying Feddy things. But I know that he would say that there's no such thing as a good cop. I disagree to an extent with that, by the way. I think that they are out there. I think that they are very, very few and far between. The chief of police in the town that Palm lives in, or used to live in rather, tried to get me to move up there and be a cop in his town, and yeah, that would go over like a fat in church. Republicans angry over what they see as law enforcement bias against conservatives during the Biden admin, as well as criminal investigations into Trump, have rallied behind Patel as the right person for the job. Mr. Patel wants to make the FBI accountable once again, get back the reputation that the FBI has had historically for law enforcement. When? When has the FBI ever had a reputation for being accountable? When have they ever had a good reputation? Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, said this week before Patel was confirmed, "Oh, if Chuck Grassley said so, then we definitely have to believe that." Neocon fucking cuck. Democrats complained about Patel's lack of management experience compared with previous FBI directors, and they highlighted incendiary past statements that they said called his judgment into question. And again, I remind you, this is a person who was on the Obama administration and highly trusted by Obama himself to be in the administration. Donald Trump could resurrect Malcolm X himself, appoint him to director of the FBI, and it would still be wrong. Alright. Another one from Fox on Kash. FBI Director Kash Patel is sworn in as acting ATF chief and visits the DC HQ. From Louis Cassiano. New FBI Director Kash Patel was also sworn in Monday as the active head of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, which, as you all know, my position on this, should be a convenience store, not a federal agency, as he takes the helm of two separate Justice Department agencies. ATF welcomes Acting Director Patel, who was sworn in and had his first visit to ATF headquarters in DC today. "We are enthusiastic to work together for a safer America," the agency posted on Monday on X. You know who would make a better director of the ATF? There are a few names that come to mind. Well, there are a lot of names that come to mind. You know who would make a better director of the ATF? Ted Nugent. There's one. Can you imagine the news media's heads exploding if Ted Nugent was the head of the FBI? How about Wayne LaPierre? He's still running around. No, I don't like him because I don't like the NRA. Because the NRA doesn't do shit to protect gun rights. They pick a few sexy cases that they seem to like. They play around with them a little bit. They pretend that it's their biggest concern. And then they disappear when their actual constitutional grievances against the American citizens, in part for the Second Amendment. I mean, it'd be the same thing though if we did Charlton Heston. Is Charlton Heston still alive? I don't even know. Charlton Heston passed away in 2008. Actually, I think that would make him a better director of the ATF, actually. Yeah, let's get Charlton Heston to do that. Patel was sworn in to lead the ATF days after taking the oath to head the FBI, following a contentious confirmation process in which Democrats raised alarms about his lack of management experience, among other claims. In response to the news, U.S. Rep. Robin Kelly of Illinois called Patel a gun lobby puppet who has no business leading the FBI or the ATF. And again, I remind you that it's just because Trump picked him. Now, I don't necessarily think that he should be in charge of two agencies, but a part of the issue that goes along with that is the fact that, just like this, just like Patel's confirmation to the FBI, anybody who gets named to be the director of the ATF by Trump is going to be met with a large amount of contention and anger and wailing and gnashing of teeth. Just like with Patel and the FBI. So, as an acting director, he doesn't need to have a Senate confirmation hearing, but the person who sits there permanently will. So they can get him in there with his work with the FBI, possibly see if the work of the two agencies overlap, which would actually be somewhat feasible based on the fact that neither one of them should exist. That's my 2 cents on that. But as far as Robin Kelly of Illinois, as far as she goes, Donald Trump could go down to Florida, knock on the door of a certain nondescript mansion near Parkland, go up there. Good news, David. David Hogg. I'm naming you as director of the ATF. I want you to come to Washington, D.C. It'll be your greatest trip ever. And come and head up the ATF. Yeah, David Hogg, the world's greatest gun grabber, or the greatest salesman for guns, whichever one you want to see it as. But if he got named by Trump to be the director of the ATF, Robin Kelly would say that David Hogg himself was a gun lobby puppet who has no business leading the ATF. They would cite the fact that Hogg once went on in a cringy Instagram video and said, "Oh, look, I'm going to go shoot guns. Because I do respect the Second Amendment, as long as you're doing it my way." And he'd go, and she'd say, "Look, there's a video of him shooting guns. Look at that. Gun lobby puppet." So, yeah, it doesn't matter. The deputy FBI director, which was what Jack Ryan was for part of his career through the Tom Clancy novels, if you have read the Tom Clancy novels. And if you have not, I recommend that you do. I have a couple to go because I made promises to a couple of author friends of mine that I would read their books. But I will shortly be going through and doing the next Clancy novel, which I believe... I just finished Sum of All Fears, and by just finished I mean 2 years ago. I don't read as much as I used to. I want to do more of that now that I'm not constantly in preparation to move and actually live with my girlfriend. I want to do some more reading. But yeah, I'll be starting the next Clancy novel, hopefully this year. But yes, at some point... Oh, it was the one that introduces Jack Clark. Or John Clark, rather. That's my next one. This is from Brendan Drennan over at the BBC. U.S. President Trump has appointed podcaster and commentator Dan Bongino as Deputy Director of the FBI, which I believe, if I remember correctly, makes him the first black man to be the Deputy Director of the FBI. I don't like Bongino, but I know a lot of people that watch this, both live and on the replay, do. I think he's a bit too bombastic in his views and a little bit too Trumpy and loyally. And I think he is a bit too pro-government for my tastes. But I also think that his appointment is going to make a lot of people who live their lives for the government, I think he's going to make a lot of their heads explode. Trump posted on social media, Bongino was a man of incredible love and passion for our country and would serve under newly confirmed FBI Director Kash Patel. Bongino, 50, who has worked for the New York Police Department and the Secret Service, is a staunch Trump ally who has pushed false claims about the 2020 election. His appointment, which does not require Senate confirmation, means neither of the top two people running the FBI have experience. Thank you, Mr. President, Bongino wrote on social media on Sunday night. The deputy director, who's responsible for supervising all domestic and international operations, is usually a career agent with years of experience. That's 3/4 of your problem right there. I just identified the problem with the FBI right there. Or at least 3/4 of it. Bongino hosts daily podcast The Dan Bongino Show, whose Facebook posts often attract more attention than those of Fox News and CNN combined. That's because Fox News and CNN are dead. In Friday's episode, there was a segment about the FBI in which he praised Patel and tried to allay Democratic fears the agency will be used to target Trump's enemies. So, there you go, Dan Bongino, Deputy Director. On his first action, going back to Patel, new FBI Director Kash Patel plans to move up to 1,500 workers out of D.C., Associated Press source says. This, of course, is from the Associated Press. Unnamed sources. Mogwai, where's the cat? From Eric Tucker and Will Weissert. Kash Patel has told senior officials that he plans to relocate up to 1,000 employees from Washington to field offices around the country and move an additional 500 to a large bureau facility in Huntsville, Alabama, according to a person familiar with the knowledge of the discussions. An unnamed source. It might be the janitor for all you know. The plans were communicated Friday, the same day Patel was sworn in on the campus of the White House, and are in keeping with his oft-stated vision of reducing the size of the FBI's footprint in D.C. and having more of a presence in offices in other cities. Great, that's what we need. Director Patel has made it clear his promise to the American public that FBI agents will be in communities focused on combating violent crime. He has directed FBI leadership to implement a plan. To put his promise into action, the FBI said in a statement that did not provide any specifics. Again, I do want to see a violent crime go down. I do. We can get gaslit all that we want that violent crime is not up. That it was the most peaceful 4 years in history when Joe Biden was the presidency. And we can argue about statistics and what crimes stopped being reported and why they stopped being reported. We can sit and have that argument for hours and hours and hours on end. But the reality is this is still a local matter. The person who discussed Patel's vision did so on condition of anonymity to describe the plans that have not been made public, and might actually be bullshit, for all we know. Alright. Let's skip that one. That's a picture gallery. So here's what they have for this one here. Brianna Morello says, pure panic at the FBI. As I exclusively reported yesterday, Kash Patel has fired several employees, which I'm not surprised by. Hundreds of agents are being forced to transfer or resign. FBI employees are arguing whether their actions in these last 4 years were legal according to a source. innocent until proven guilty. That was brought up in the Discord. One employee arguing their actions were legal because they had court orders, while another employee reminded him that they lied to the judges to obtain those court orders. Anonymous source. I believe it, but I can't really report on it without saying huge grain of salt because we don't know who reported this. Accountability is underway. Alright, and with that, we will move on to another big shakeup in DC because the Joint Chiefs was fired. And of course, because the Joint Chiefs was black, we now have to sit and have the argument on whether the Joint Chiefs was fired because he was black, which seems to be the new talking point, which was disseminated pretty widely and quickly in the exact same words over and over again by every page shill on X. From Ashley Fields. Pete Hegseth on Monday rejected a reporter's question that suggested President Trump's pick for the new Joint Chiefs of Staff Chair, Dan Kane, was not qualified for the position. Trump on Friday removed Air Force General C.Q. Brown. I didn't realize Air Force had generals. I thought they had naval ranks. I gotta look that up. That's gonna bug me. Air Force ranks and pay.
Hey, listen.
Alright, let's bring this over here. We'll learn this together. So down here it looks like they have similar to Naval. We have Airman Basic, Airman, Airman First Class, Senior Airman, Staff Sergeant, Technical Sergeant, Master Sergeant. This is where they get to NCO, of course. Master Sergeant, Senior Master Sergeant, Chief Master Sergeant, Command Chief Master Sergeant, and Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, which is the highest enlisted rank that you can get. And then we go into, and again, I suppose they don't have any basic officer rank below lieutenant because we've got 01, second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, colonel. Okay, so I guess it is closer to the army, to the infantry ranks. I thought it was closer to naval ranks. Captain, Major, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, Brigadier General, Major General. I hope that they're modern in their Major Generalship. Lieutenant General, General, and General of the Air Force. Huh, I learned something. They don't have Space Force on here. Why? Back up to where we were. Trump on Friday removed Air Force General C.Q. Brown, Jr., a 4-star general, as chair of the Joint Chiefs, replacing him with 3-star General Kane. It was part of a broader purge of Pentagon posts made by Trump. Why did you hire an underqualified lieutenant general to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs? A reporter asked Hegseth in a room filled with international leaders on the margins of Hegseth's meeting with Saudi Arabia Defense Minister Prince Khalid bin Salman. I'm going to choose to reject your unqualified question, Defense Secretary answered before moving on to the next question. I mean, it's the next rank down. It's not like he just pulled a staff sergeant to be the leader of the Joint Chiefs. Hegseth, before he was confirmed as Defense Secretary, accused Brown of being involved in woke initiatives that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, and suggested the leader be fired in order for the U.S. military efforts to succeed. I will give full admission of ignorance on this because I didn't know who this person was until this, so I don't know if he actually was involved in DEI initiatives or not. I know nothing about his career. First of all, you gotta fire the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Hegseth said during a November podcast appearance. But any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever, that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit has to go. Either you're in for war fighting and that's it. That's the only litmus test that we care about. Great. We got a Bushite. Fuck. Brown refused to resign after Trump won the election, but accepted the termination, thanking the country for his ability to serve the nation in a Saturday post on LinkedIn. I was inspired to serve by my father, who told me 4 years in the military will not hurt you. 4 years turned into 4 decades. Surrounded by the finest service members and civilians from across the nation, every day you have inspired me, Brown, the nation's second black person to serve as chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, wrote. It's been my distinct honor to conclude my career as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. As chairman, I focused on warfighting, modernization, and trust. The Joint Forces' commitment to our security has never been more critical. I'm confident you will continue to stand resolute in defense of our nation. Shireen and I wish you and your families all the best. Thank you for your leadership. So, a couple things that I will say to this. First off, I will thank the general for his service. I don't know enough about his service career to say whether or not he was a bad person. But he did put his fucking neck on the line, at least as an enlisted man, for this nation. What he did in his officer's career, well, we can sit back and have a conversation about. Again, because I don't know. Some supported his removal while others were outraged, including the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, in which Brown is a member. So, the stories that are coming around on this are they fired him just because he's black because it has to be a fully white cabinet. I don't buy that shit. I never have, and I never will. Was there possibly some DEI initiative? Yes, we had a very DEI-oriented military. Do I know this for a fact? No, I don't know if he was the one that was involved in this or not. This is one that I would like to say I'd like to see some more details on. I'd like to see some more rationale behind Hegseth's firing. But again, it's not like they went and picked some staff sergeant, some E4 to be the next director either of the Joint Chiefs. Alright, let's keep going. The racism part of it. Booker says firing Joint Chiefs Chairman sends dangerous message to the military on political loyalty. From Megan Leibowitz. Mr. Potato Head Cory Booker said Sunday that President Trump's firing of General C.Q. Brown Jr. from his role as chairman of the Joint Chiefs sends a dangerous message to the military on political loyalty to the president. Trump fired Brown, the U.S.'s highest-ranking military officer, on Friday. Then President Biden had nominated Brown in 23 to a 4-year term. A chairman should give independent advice on the military and national security, Booker told moderator Kristen Welker in an interview on NBC News' Meet the Depressed, noting that the position's terms are set so the chairman will be independent of politics. Right. Trump has thrown that out the window and is sending a dangerous message to the military. It's not about your independent expertise, it's not about your years of service. Even though, again, they picked a 3-star general. It's about your personal politics and loyalty to me. And that is a dangerous message to send to our military at a time when we really need independent, credible advice going to the president, because we live in a difficult, complex world, Booker said. What Booker actually meant was, we need people who are telling the president that the Ukraine is our greatest ally. Alright, we have one from NPR talking about who Dan Kane is. And NPR needs your money, comrades, so hit that donate button so that they can tell you that Dan Kane is a white supremacist because he was nominated by a white supremacist. So, hit that donate button and listen to what Juliana Kim and Tom Bowman have to say. President Trump announced he would nominate retired Air Force Lieutenant General John Dan Rassin Kane, a career fighter jet pilot who patrolled the skies above D.C. during the 9/11 attacks and served as in the Middle East during the fight against the Islamic State, and then worked at the CIA to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Okay. Enlisted as a pilot, served in the Middle East during the ISIS fights, and worked at the CIA, even though I'm against the CIA in and of itself. I don't see where they're saying this guy's unqualified. He's got a pretty impressive resume as is. Kane was an unusual choice for the top military job and is not well known. Several officials on Capitol Hill and the Pentagon granted anonymity as they were not authorized to speak publicly on the matter. Anonymous sources told NPR they had to Google his name. Kane has not served in any of the roles: Joint Chiefs, Vice Chairman, Chief of Staff for one of the branches of the Armed Service, or Head of a Combatant Command that nominees are legally required to have performed in order to be nominated. The president, however, may waive these requirements if he determines such an action is necessary in the national interest. The nomination is part of a larger shakeup at the Pentagon. So one of the things that I'm seeing in common with these nominations and the reaction to these nominations is the reaction is coming and saying, well, he's not qualified because he hasn't done X, Y, and Z, and this going on top of it, of course, with the legal requirement that the nominee for the Joint Chiefs have to be a vice chairman, chief of staff for one of the branches, or head of a combatant command, and that this could be waived in this particular presidency in order to get him in here. But that's what I'm seeing with Patel, with RFK, with Gabbard. Well, RFK was just to piss a bunch of people off because of the anti-vax thing. But with Gabbard, with Duffy, that would be another really, really good one. With Hegseth himself, with Patel, Bongino, is that you typically go a certain route in DC in order to get to these high-ranking cabinet positions. You have had to go through and been an FBI agent for X amount of time and be in command of the FBI for X amount of time to be a director or deputy director. That you have to work in intelligence in order to be the director of national intelligence. That you have to follow this career path in the military in order to get to the top. But doing so keeps churning out these highly political and highly politicized people over and over and over again, it seems. So when you take people who would not normally be in the position for this job, number one, it's a lot easier to can these people if they do fuck up somewhere in the midst of this, because it's not somebody who followed a specific career trajectory that got them access to a lot of sensitive eyes only material that they could come back and turn back and try to burn the administration with. And yeah, they might do something different than career politicians who have only been focused on getting to the director or deputy director position. Just a thought. Decca is here with a wave. Welcome, Decca. Deca is one of the better mods that we had. I noticed in the midst of wondering what was going to happen in my Discord that Deca was not modded, even though he's modded both on the Twitch and the YouTube side. So he's now modded over on the Discord as well. I figure he does a good enough job for a big channel like DJ Cutman, so he'll do a pretty good job here, I think. I think he's a good guy. I think he's one of the good ones. Alright. So that is Dan Kane. What else do we have? Let's move on to Doge. And let's flip some things around because I wanted this one on top, not the next one. Nick Sorter X's out. Breaking update. The email to federal employees from Elon Musk's team asking them what they've accomplished the last week has been sent. Failure to reply by Monday at midnight will be considered a resignation. Now, I don't think it's actually going to be a resignation, by the way. We'll talk about that when we talk about Doge's role in the government. Again. I feel like we talk about that a lot. But if you're on the audio platform, you can't see this one. What the email says, it's from HR. The address is redacted. Please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Please do not send any classified information, links, or attachments. Deadline is this Monday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, one of the interesting things to this is that this email does not show where it says that failure to respond would be considered to be a resignation. And a part of that is the fact that while Doge is doing a lot of things, showing us a lot of things that had our money wasted on in the government, it is an advisory commission. It's not a senatorially mandated position. It's not a congressionally mandated position. It's not an office in the cabinet. It's not even an official government agency. So they don't have the power to fire anybody. But they can get this email, an AI going through, get that out to the chief of staff and the heads of all these agencies and say, hey, here's what this person's accomplishing. Do you want to keep this person around or no? So that was the email that got sent out. Doge will use AI to assess the responses of federal workers who were told to justify their jobs via email. I'm not a big AI person, by the way. We were talking about this. I'm actually going to break down after 4 years and go get new glasses next week. Probably take another week to get them here, but I'm going to go get new glasses next week. Get the eyes checked, get the order coming in. They have a Ray-Ban set of glasses that has Meta AI in them, and Palm was actually joking a little bit and saying that I wouldn't want them because of the Meta AI, because I don't use Facebook. I use Instagram, but I don't use Facebook. And I said, it's not the Meta that's the problem with that. It's the AI. I don't trust it. I know a lot of people seem to love it. I don't trust it. I enjoy some of the things that other people have done with AI. There's an Instagram page that I particularly like showing what Pokemon would look like if they were in real life. And 90% of them actually look like I would expect them to through AI. Some of them are just really bad CG. But some of them actually look good and believable. This is an NBC article, so like 17 authors. From Courtney Kube, Julie Sirkin, Yamiche Elsandor, Laura Strickler, and Direct Gregorian. Responses to the Elon Musk directed email to the government employees about what work they had accomplished in the last week were expected to be fed into an AI system to determine whether those jobs are necessary, according to 3 sources with knowledge of the system. The information will go into a large language model, an advanced AI that looks at huge amounts of text data to understand, generate, and process human language, the sources said. The AI system will determine whether someone's work is mission critical or not. The U.S. Office of Personnel Management emails were sent to federal workers on Saturday. Shortly after Musk wrote in a post on X that all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week, failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. Now, one of the things I want to point out with this, because, well, it's one of the things that bugs me about this stuff, is the fact that we already know which government positions are non-essential. We find out every single time the government, quote, runs out of money. We'll be talking about that next week, by the way, too, because that deadline is coming up. March 14th, government, quote, runs out of money. And we go into government shutdown, and we will see who's all a necessary employee and who is non-essential. The U.S. Office of Personnel Management emails were sent to federal workers on Saturday, shortly after Musk wrote in a post on X that all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. All right, I gotta fix that. My phone has been going off way too much. It gets jostled around in my pocket and gets turned up off the vibration mode. Sadly enough. All right, that's fixed. The Office of Personnel Management email did not mention the resignation threat, but said, please reply to this email with approximate 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week, and CC your manager. Please do not send any classified information. Links or attachments. Deadline is this Monday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, a lot of people are coming out with this and saying that this is terrible, and government employees shouldn't have to answer to this or anything else like that. And a lot of other people are pointing out correctly that, I mean, we in the private sector do this all the time. We do this constantly. We might not get an email from corporate that says, hey, tell me what it is that you did and why you're essential, but we do. We have sit-downs, we have meetings, and a lot of the times we do have to defend why we're essential to the business. And occasionally some people don't pass that test. It's sad that they have to go back out and explain to their spouse or wonder how they're going to pay their bills, etc. But it's a reality of life, unfortunately. The reason the email requested no links or attachments is because of the plan to send the information to the AI system, the sources said. A request for comment from the Office of Personnel Management as to whether humans will be involved in reviewing the responses was not answered immediately. The White House declined to comment. I would like to see, honestly, a second set of eyes on this because machines are cold and calculating. It's a part of the reason that I don't trust any of this. Sometimes you need to have the cold and calculating, and sometimes you need to have the human eye review it. So I would hope that it'd be a system where if the job got red flagged as non-essential, then the next thing you know, okay, now this gets kicked back to a human to sit back and review it a second time. I would hope. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. The USA Today with an interesting article headline, which kind of tells me they think the private sector is evil. How Doge's email to federal employees was ripped from the private sector playbook. From Bailey Schultz. What appears to be Doge's latest attempt to cut government spending may be new for federal government, but the slash and burn layoff strategy was ripped straight out of the private sector's playbook, according to a Harvard expert. It's non-union jobs. They can get laid off whenever they want. It's evil. After thousands of government layoffs, the Office of Personnel Management on Saturday directed federal workers to email a list of approximately 5 accomplishments from the previous week by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. Yeah, we know about all this already. Must double down. Office Personnel Management on Monday told workers the response is voluntary. Must double down on a post on X and said workers would be given another chance, but failure to respond a second time will result in termination. Again, he actually can't do that. He can go to the Office of Personnel Management and say, yes, it is time. I found that these jobs are unnecessary and this person didn't respond. So, yes, you have to fire this person. But he himself cannot do it. The messaging has spurred confusion among federal workers and backlash from agencies. But for private companies, rapid action to cut jobs in this fashion happens all the time, according to Joe Fuller, a professor of management practice at Harvard Business School. Well, not in my private sector, it doesn't. This is usually emergency turnaround kind of stuff from companies, Fuller said, which seems the way of the admin views a lot of this. Fuller said companies have long turned to mass layoffs as a way to reduce costs. Sometimes employees are directed to defend the value they add to the company. He said another technique is to have employees reapply for their current job to weed out workers with dated skill sets. It's not a strategy with the greatest accuracy and equity, Fuller said, adding that he doesn't recommend this approach to most organizations, but when you're involved in a short-term emergency cost reduction, unfortunately, people do not resort to this, in part because they just don't have the time to do it in a more transparent and thoughtful fashion. Fuller called it a blunt instrument wielded by companies in duress that are hoping for a quick turnaround, which realistically we could say about the federal government at this point. That seems to be how Musk and Trump view the government, he said. So, that is where they are at. And again, in SpaceX, you'd probably see something like that all the time. From the New York Post, a brief one on this one. More than 1 million workers respond to the Doge email demanding to know what they did last week. From Diana Glebova. More than 1 million federal staffers, less than half the government's workforce, have responded. I can announce. Oh wait, no, that's not Musk. That's bubble-headed bleach blonde. I can announce that we've had more than 1 million workers who have chosen to participate in this very simple task of, again, sending 5 bullet points to your direct supervisor or manager, White House press secretary, bleach blonde bobblehead, told reporters on Tuesday. Where is my music? Did the Game Chops radio go down? Decca, why is it quiet? Decca. Hey, here's could be one of your accomplishments for this week right there. Decca. The figure is still less than half the federal workforce of more than 2.4 million people, which I don't 100% understand, excluding the active duty military and postal service employees, according to Trump admin data. Musk issued the directive after Trump told the Department of Government Efficiency head to be more aggressive in his efforts to upend the federal government. So, I would kind of like to see what some of these people come out and say. I want to see the 5 best and the 5 worst. No, I want to see the 20 best and the 20 worst. As long as there's nothing classified in there, can we make that public? Trump admin says federal agencies can ignore the "What did you do last week?" email from CBS. Gabriel Ake, Kristen Brown, and Caitlin Yellick. Yellick? Apparently I don't have that kind of bandwidth either. Because I got spinning wheel of death over there. Oh, there it came back. Alright. The office asked the federal workers to document 5 things they accomplished over the past week, told executive branch officials on Monday that individual agencies can decide how to respond despite a threat from Elon that employees who refuse could lose their jobs. 2 officials said the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM, held a call with the heads of human capital at federal agencies and said it's up to each entity to determine how they handle the directive employees received on Saturday. Federal employees received an email from the Office of Personnel Management with the subject line, "What did you do last week?" We know that. We've seen that one. On Monday, Musk gave the workers some leeway. The original message sparked confusion, and several agencies told workers to ignore the request, including the DOJ, the FBI, and the State Department. 3 departments that handle classified information. I understand that entirely. The Pentagon, that one I would like to actually see audited. Even though, yes, they do handle classified information. My first position, politically, before I put an R or a D or an L after my name, anywhere, is anti-war. That will always be my first position. I don't care which direction the parties go. My first position will be anti-war. Audit the Pentagon. They fail their audits anyway. The Department of Energy, Homeland Security, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. So, there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 agencies that handle classified information. Of course, they should get some sort of pass off of this. And this is a person who hates classified information being classified. But I understand. Others, including the Transportation Department, the Education Department, and the Department of Commerce, and the National Transportation Safety Board, told workers that they should comply. In those departments, they should. There's nothing classified there. Most people don't like any of those departments. During the call on Monday with agencies, OPM was asked what would be done with any information already provided from employees who responded to the email. According to a source familiar with the matter, anonymous of course, OPM said there were no plans to do anything with the information the source said. So, I think it was a bit to put the fear of God into people, especially with Musk running his mouth over on his own platform. Also, federal employee unions are telling members not to respond to the emails, asking them what they got done last week because, well, the union is going to do whatever it can to keep its dues-paying members in their positions so they can continue paying dues, just like they tried to deny people from taking the buyout. Alright, we read that one, so we're going to skip that. We read that in a different company. An interesting and a weird one to hear coming from Business Insider, though. Because Insider has become a very, very left-wing rag of its own. It's not really a finance thing anymore. It's a very, very left-wing rag at this point. Reader has told us that maybe Doge's email request is a good idea. From Katie Nutopoulos. I think she's Greek. But I'm pretty sure George Snuffleupagus is too. On Monday, Business Insider asked readers to weigh in on what they'd do if they were suddenly asked to make a list of 5 things they'd accomplished during a work week, like DOJ asked federal workers to do. Nearly 120 readers responded. That's really sad. With a wide range of opinions, only about 18% of the respondents, so 20 people, said they wouldn't do the list at all. They'd accept that they might lose their job over their refusal. Some said they'd do it, but begrudgingly. And nearly half the people who replied said not only would they willingly fill out the list of 5 accomplishments, but they'd also do it with a smile and relish the chance to brag about their work. Which, that in and of itself is an attitude that I am surprised to see a lot of the people in the private sector have. I mean, we grew up in the 90s with Dilbert and everything else saying, "Oh, I hate my job, and I hate my job as fashionable, and I hate Mondays," and what other stereotypes are out there for that? Clearly, political tenor of the Doge office and feelings about Elon Musk factored in. Quite a lot of the people who weren't his biggest fans had some colorful insults and invectives about the moonlighting Tesla CEO. Stupidly childish and toxic was one of the more safe for work critiques of Doge's actions. There were also some people who seemed excited by the idea that the List 5 Things email could lead to cutting government waste. A recurring theme that was that while they didn't like the way that Doge was going about its work, which many said seemed insulting and threatening to workers, the idea of being expected to list your weekly accomplishments is indeed a good idea. And again, that's coming from Business Insider. So, there's a lot more interest from the private sector into this than I think a lot of people realize. If they were smart, they would have AI write their list with a prompt for essential duties. Well, given the fact that it's going to be fed into an AI, that actually would be smart, I guess. And again, coming from somebody who doesn't do AI. MK Ultra joined over on the Instagram side. I miss MK Ultra. And his brother, too, Chilaga. Chilaga, 1984. The elder millennial, if you will. Here are the agencies that followed Musk's Doge productivity email verdict and the ones that didn't. From Diana Stancy over at Fox News, we'll go briefly over this one. Trump said that he could recite 5 things he did 6 weeks ago, and that those who didn't respond will eventually end up losing their jobs. The DOT. DOT, yes, did respond. Veterans Affairs did respond. Small Business Administration did respond. Kelly Loeffler's a Trumpy person, so I'm kind of not surprised by that. Department of Defense. Department of Defense didn't, but they said that they will coordinate your response for you. State Department, we know, said no. DOJ and FBI, we know, said no. HHS said no. So, that's who did and did not. We've got an op-ed that's going to talk a bit about what I talked about earlier on whether or not these people actually can get fired. The small person requested to listen to the news. I think she's sick. Huh, interesting. I'm not surprised the DoD said no because they handle a lot of classified stuff. I'd like to see the DoD rather be accountable, but I understand with the classification that goes along with that. They kind of almost had to say no. Can you imagine what some of those would be, the DoD employees? Slaughtered small children in the Middle East. Pretended to be Ukrainian soldier. Slaughtered small children in the Gaza Strip. Alright, from Axios, Elon Musk's Doge efforts hit a brick wall from Emily Peck. Despite his threats, Musk can't simply fire federal employees for not responding to an email. Attorneys and former senior federal officials told Axios, dude, I'm a guy who sits and yells into a microphone. I have some interest in going to adult law school, but I don't have a law degree. And I know that he has no power to fire people. Everybody with 4 functioning neurons knows that Elon Musk can't fire people. He can pass recommendations along to the Office of Personnel Management and Budget, but he is not a government employee. It's an advisory position. So far, legal barriers haven't stopped Musk's Doge purge, but even he has Trump's explicit support in his latest effort. Yet Musk may now be bumping up against a harder boundary. For the first time, federal agencies appear to be pushing back, and they're getting support from the executive branch, despite what Trump is saying publicly. It's too early to tell if the agencies will hold the line and terminate workers for failing to reply to the email sent from the Office of Personnel Management on Saturday with the subject line, "What did you do last week?" And again, the Doge department can't do it. It's up to the heads of the agencies. Alright, speaking of people who handle classified information, from the Hill, Trump suspends security clearances for Jack Smith's outside lawyers. Why did they have security clearances in the first place? Actually, I know why they did, but it still bothers me. From Brett Samuels. The Orange Man himself on Tuesday signed a memo suspending security clearances for a number of outside lawyers who are defending former special counsel Jack Smith in his personal capacity. That's, of course, to make sure that Trump doesn't go back and arrest him. Which was smart. He should have retained a lawyer. White House Staff Secretary Will Sharf said in the Oval Orifice that memo targeted Washington, D.C. based law firm Covington and Burling, which provided pro bono legal services to Smith, who led probes of Trump that resulted in 2 criminal indictments. As a result of those actions, we are now going to be suspending and putting under review security clearances for employees at that firm, holding people responsible, Sharf said. Trump quipped that they would call the memo of the deranged Jack Smith signing, invoking a pejorative that he's recently used to attack the former special counsel. The memo states the government would suspend any active security clearances held by Peter Koski and all members, partners, and employees of Covington and Burling LLP who assisted the former special counsel during his time as special counsel. Now, I am actually yes and no on this one. I think it's funny, and I think that it's good that people who went on something like this actually see some sort of justice for pushing on basically what was a witch hunt on this one here. But the problem I do have with this is if something does come up as a criminal referral to Jack Smith for any reason whatsoever, he is going to need an attorney. He has the right to an attorney under the Constitution. He has a right to have counsel present during all questioning. because of the nature of what Jack Smith does, he has the right to have a counsel that does have security clearance. So I'm not the kind of person who comes back and says, well, I don't like this person, so this person doesn't get the constitutional protection. No, everybody gets the constitutional protection. So I'm a little bit not a fan of this. Now, if no criminal referral comes to Jack Smith, it's no harm, no foul. And this may be an indication that there's not going to be a criminal referral. Just kind of send him on his way and document dump what it was that he did. But yes, as usual, my default position is, even if I don't like the person, they get the same rights afforded to them that everybody else does. I've been very consistent on that in my life. A Covington spokesperson who said in a statement that the firm defends Smith in his personal individual capacity. For more than 100 years, Covington has represented clients facing government investigations, consistent with the best traditions of the legal profession. We recently agreed to represent Jack Smith when it became apparent that he would become the subject of a government investigation. Covington serves as defense counsel to Jack Smith in his personal individual capacity. We look forward to defending Mr. Smith's interests and appreciate the trust that he's placed in us to do so. Since taking office, Trump has targeted Smith and those associated with him, decrying the investigations into his conduct as weaponization of government. The DOJ in January fired several prosecutors who worked on Trump's criminal cases, saying they could not trust them. So, that is that. So, we had a bit of a dust-up between the Donald and the governess of Maine. From CNN, and we'll watch the video with this one. Trump threatens Maine's federal funding. Intense exchange with state's governor. This is probably, if I understand the story correctly, this actually is probably going to be another one that I break with the MAGA crowd over. With my strict adherence to states' rights and things like this. But I want to hear it coming from the exchange first, which I've not seen this video yet.
And it's crazy, but the NCAA has complied immediately, by the way, that's good. But I understand Maine, is Maine here, the governor of Maine?
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
So some very sharp words there with the governor. You couldn't quite see her, but she was sitting pretty close to the president at a table of other governors. She told the president directly, "We will see you in court." Now, this is all coming after the Maine Principals Association, which is the group that oversees high school athletes in Maine, has said that it would not comply and it would allow transgender student athletes to play. So that was one pretty unusual exchange there when you saw someone standing up to the president about one of his rulings. The rest of the meeting was actually quite civil, but certainly we will see if there's a legal case on this front. As we heard the governor say, we'll see you in court.
All right, so I'm going to go full disclosure on this. For me, the transgender in sports thing has been a bit of a contentious issue internally for myself. Now, I do understand the fact that it only goes in one direction, and it only goes in one direction for a reason. Because substandard men in sports typically can smash records in women's sports based on the basic biology of men versus women. So, logically, I look at this and I say, no, the transgender men should not be competing in women's sports because even if they take every single hormone that you can get prescribed from a Walgreens, the person is still has a heavier muscle mass, has a bigger heart, bigger lungs, and more base strength than their female counterparts. This is all true. But there are people, for whatever reason whatsoever, that want to have their daughters competing against men in the sports. I default on this to my 10th Amendment roots. I do. I think it should be put up to a vote in every state, and they should decide whether or not this is something that they want in their state or if they don't. And the people that don't like it are probably going to vote with their feet and vote with their tax dollars and go to a state that doesn't allow it if the overwhelming majority in that state says yes, they're going to do it. And honestly, I don't think that it's going to be the norm in most states, but in a lot of these states, like Maine especially, instead of putting it to the will of the people at school boards on a local level or at a state level official will come back out and say, we're going to do this because we're going to beat the evil conservatives by doing it this way. And it becomes mostly a political thing, not a will of the people thing. I'd love to see an actual vote in all 50 states on who wants to have this in their high school level and who doesn't. I think the results would surprise a lot of people, especially progressives. Let's read a little bit more about this. From Bangor Daily News. This is actually before the contentious exchange. Disapproval for Janet Mills reaches highest point in poll of Mainers. From Bill Coben. A poll released on Monday found nearly half of Mainers do not approve of Janet Mills' performance, which is the highest disapproval mark for the Democrat who took office in 2018. The 49% of Mainers who disapprove of Mills mostly cited her handling of the state budget and finances, according to the latest University of New Hampshire Survey Center poll. Far smaller numbers of her detractors cited the handling of housing and immigration, healthcare, in explaining their dissatisfaction per the poll. Mills, who will leave office at the end of 2026, gained national attention after engaging Friday in a tense back-and-forth exchange with Trump over the state's policies allowing transgender girls to compete in scholastic sports, but the UNH survey was done before that, with 855 respondents completing it online between February 13th and 17th. Only 1% of those dissatisfied with Mills cited their handling of LGBTQI, RAMIGI, XTBY, AEIOU, sometimes Y issues, the survey found. The 48% of Mainers who approve of Mills in the latest poll marks a decline from her approval ratings that hovered between 53 and 60% since 2023. So, honestly, I think she's on her way out, and I think she is trying to burn the house down on the way out. Break all the toys. See, the thing with the trans men is I don't see a lot of that happening, and I don't know if it's because it's not publicized, and I will fully admit that it's not always a publicized thing when a trans man does it, because that person would have a very lackluster performance competing with other men for the same reasons that I brought out before. And yes, that is almost the entire conversation when we talk about this phenomenon, is the people who are transitioning to the female side who have the biological advantages. From the Associated Press, Democratic governors balance whether to fight or pacify after Trump threatens one of their own. From Joey Capoletti, Trump's real-time confrontation with Maine's governor over transgender athletes captured the conundrum many Democratic governors are facing in the Republican second term. Janet Mills vowed that she would see Trump in court over his threat to withhold money from the state if it didn't comply with his executive order, delighted Democrats who want a more strident pushback. But the dust-up that played out in the open on Friday as Trump hosted governors at the White House ticked off a president known to retaliate against people he considers enemies. And there that goes. Hours after the spat, the Federal Department of Education announced it was initiating an investigation into the Maine Department of Education over the inclusion of trans athletes. Now see, I don't like any of that. We're supposed to be neutering the Department of Education. Remember? Trump doesn't want them playing in girls' and women's sports. Maine law bars discrimination based on gender identity. At any time a public interaction like that takes place, it's coming from a person who's grounded in their values. No, it's coming from a person who's making a political statement. Known political statement maker Gretchen Whitmer said in an interview on Sunday, "I love Janet Mills because she was mean to the evil orange poopy head, and I appreciate her for standing up. I also know that there's always a cost that comes with that." The Democrats who lead the nation's most populous states were in Washington for a meeting of the National Governors Association where they tried to strike a balance between their state's needs and their feelings about Trump. Whitmer, known for clashing with Trump during his first term over federal COVID-19 response, campaigned vigorously against him in 2024 on behalf of appointee Kamala Harris. Whitmer said that she sat next to Trump at a White House dinner on Saturday night. "I was the only Democrat at the table. I was a little surprised, but I think everyone in the room was a bit surprised, to be honest. But I took the opportunity to talk a little bit about tariffs." Michigan, and go away. No advertisements. Fuck off. Michigan and other states could be significantly affected by some of the president's early proposals. For example, Michigan expects nearly 42% of its budgets to come from federal funds and relies heavily on trade with Canada, which now faces potential Trump-imposed trade penalties. A federal judge is considering a request to block the admin from freezing trillions of dollars in grants and loans, a move that could severely impact states. At the same time, Trump's key ally, Elon Musk, is pushing to shrink the federal government, with likely ripples nationwide. About 80% of the roughly 2 million people in the federal workforce live outside of Metro Washington, dispersed across the country. I'm very worried that people are going to make decisions without a real understanding of what ramifications are going to be for American public. Whitmer said, "Musk," she said, "is dangerous." But she liked him when he was just making electric cars. So, again, I don't see the need that this has to all be at a federal level. I break with a lot of Trumpy people and conservatives like that. I break with 3/4 of my Discord on that. I think a lot of it should be put up to a vote. Let's go back on this. From The Independent. After viral Trump showdown, Maine governor's MAGA opponents petitioned for her recall, but there's a problem. From Joe Summerlad. A Change.org petition, organized by local conservative activist Melissa Moulton, already has 12,362 of the 15,000 signatures it's seeking at the time of writing. But there's a big problem. Maine is one of the 30 American states that does not have a provision to recall a governor. Yeah, but again, it's symbolic, and I believe if the verbiage of the previous article is any indication, I believe that Mills is termed out in 26, so next year. So yeah, just like what a lot of people thought about Trump and him taking a second term, either now or last term, the idea being that she can just run out and break all the toys and she doesn't have to worry about any sort of repercussions for what it is that she's doing because of the fact that she can't run again. And I do think that there's something to be said about this. Alright, let's talk about the Epstein records. Are we at 145 already? Holy shit. Senate Republicans asked Patel and Bondi to release Epstein records from Ashley Fields. Marsha Blackburn urged FBI Director Kash Patel and AG Pam Bondi to release the details of Epstein's flight log for his private jet and helicopter in a Monday letter addressed to both officials. You guys think Trump is on it? I would be interested to see. I think it'd be more interesting to see if he wasn't on it. The American people deserve to know exactly who was affiliated with this network. As you know, over the course of many years, Epstein built a heinous global sex trafficking network that caused irreparable harm to countless women, she added. Since Epstein's death in 2019, there's still much about his tragic case that's not known, including the names of the associates that are listed in the flight logs of the private jet, and Ghislaine Maxwell's Little Black Book. Blackburn and Patel committed to illuminating the full extent and scope of the international sex trafficking ring during his January 30th testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee. She encouraged the newly minted director to promptly release the contents within the catalog and all video surveillance footage from Epstein's residence in Palm Beach. She requested similar documents outlining business relationships with the deceased millionaire from Douglas O'Donnell, acting commissioner of the IRS. This critical information, identifying every individual who could have participated in Epstein's abhorrent conduct, is long overdue. The survivors of Epstein's horrific crimes want transparency and accountability, and they and the American people deserve nothing less, the Tennessee lawmakers said. So, and again, I'm on a bit of a mixed feeling about this, not necessarily specifically mixed about it, because yes, we need to know who was doing what and with who, and again, transparency is going to be key in a lot of this, because a lot of these people are never going to be able to work or do business again if they're found out to have been in this book. But what I'm going to say about this, while the rest of you cheer this on, and it looks like the Game Chops radio dropped again, but what I'm going to say about this as the rest of you cheer this on is that you should be making a plan and stocking up whenever you can, and have a few months worth of food for if this drops, because this is going to wreck a large swath of the economy, especially if a lot of these people get assets seized and have to come out of the economy at this point, because there are a lot of really fucking rich people on this list that control a lot of the money in this country. I want accountability just as much as everybody else, but we've got to be prepared for it. Because you pull that much money out of the economy all at once, in government asset seizures, etc., it's going to become an interesting day, to say the least. Delay to Epstein files being released raises questions, from Newsweek. Marnie Rose McFall. On Thursday, Pam Bondi indicated the files pertaining to Epstein are set to be released. The fact that they're yet to be released is raising questions from Republicans. Newsweek reached out to the DOJ via an online contact form outside of regular working hours for comment. At CPAC, Bondi was asked by conservative commentator Betty Johnson about when the list will be released. Bondi said that she'd been briefed on it and she's not able to talk about it publicly, but added that Trump's directive will be followed. Shortly after this, conservatives and Trump supporters cheered Bondi's comments, and some expressed the belief the list may be released in a matter of hours. As of right now, as far as I know, when I started stream, it has yet to be released. Some of the page shills are saying, it's because she's trying to get Trump's name out of it. I'd like to see it if his name is in it. I really would. All right. In more local news, from the New York Post, New York correction officers continue to strike as state moves legal action forward. We're looking for help. From Bon Golden. The state is turning the legal screws on striking corrections officers as tensions flare inside out-of-control New York prisons and workers picket outside of them. State troopers began serving union members out on strike illegally with summons over the weekend as hundreds refused to comply with last week's court order instructing them to return to work. We're not working for threats, we're looking for help, Rebecca, the wife of an Albany area correction officer, said alongside the state Senate Republicans at a press conference on the Capitol on Monday. Rebecca declined to share her last name out of fear of reprisal by the state corrections department, which, by the way, is what Hochul is doing. When she's sending these people out here with summons out of here, she's arresting people who are striking. Kathy Hochul, the union champion, is arresting union government employees. Let that sink in for just a second. Alright. Let's grab one from Politico. Contractor leaked more than 400,000 returns. So, go check your numbers. Mine hasn't been returned yet, thankfully. From Bernie Becker, the IRS told House Republicans this month that a former contractor leaked the private data of more than 400,000 taxpayers, nearly 6 times higher than originally thought. Okay, so this goes beyond this return. Check your numbers to see what just got leaked. Doug O'Donnell, the acting IRS commissioner, told House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan that the agency had informed 405,427 taxpayers that the contractor, Charles Littlejohn, had leaked information from their tax returns or other agency forms. The agency had said last year that it was telling around 700,000 businesses and individuals that Littlejohn had leaked their data. Littlejohn was sentenced to 5 years last year for the disclosures, which included returns for both Trump and Musk, who is currently leading a government downsizing effort. The New York Times reported on Trump's return, while ProPublica published stories on Musk and a number of other wealthy people. And, by the way, found that Trump paid his fucking taxes. That's why you didn't hear any more about that after it came out. So, that's out there. The acting IRS chief is retiring amid this upheaval, from Caitlin Polance. The acting head of the IRS plans to retire Friday, the agency announced on Tuesday, after weathering weeks of chaos and cutbacks at the agency since Trump took office. Acting IRS Commissioner Doug O'Donnell's departure comes abruptly as the agency heads into the crunch time of tax filing season. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced in a news release that the IRS will be led by Melanie Krause, the agency's chief operating officer, who has been sympathetic to Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency efforts. Within the agency, Trump intends for former Rep. Billy Long to head the IRS. The IRS has been my professional home for 38 years, O'Donnell said in a news release. I care deeply about the institution and its people, and I'm confident that Melanie will be an outstanding steward of the service until a new commissioner is confirmed. So, between the article we just read and the fact that the agency is getting cut right after he had a major hiring jump kind of tells me that, yeah, he wants out. So the average IRS tax refund is more than 32% lower this season. Early filing data shows. Here's why. Here's why the economy actually did suck. From Kate Dorr. February 14th filing data doesn't include refunds receiving the Earned Income Tax Credit or Additional Child Tax Credit, which aren't issued before the mid-February, the IRS noted. The previous year's tax filing data included tax returns claiming these credits. The value of these tax breaks can be substantial, even resulting in 5-figure refunds in some cases. So they're saying it's because of the the child tax credit, which I will, for the first time, be able to claim. Kind of excited for that. But I still think it's because the economy sucks. Alright. In what is quite possibly the dumbest news story that I've seen this cycle, Mayor Pete weighing in on something that he knows something about. I'm not making this up. Republicans have introduced legislation to increase your bank fees, which is 100% not what happened, by the way. So, TLDR, and we'll look at a couple of the articles that go with this. But the actual thing that's happening is that rule that I complained about last year, where the Biden admin was putting price caps on overdraft fees, because that's certainly going to let banks be generous when people are actually in trouble, when they don't make any money off of what's essentially a loan, a short-term emergency loan. The Trump admin is rescinding this. So, let's grab one from ABC 25 to start with. Tim Scott blasted over efforts to roll back Biden-era caps on overdraft fees for big banks. Tim Scott has drawn criticism as chairman of the Senate Banking Committee after leading an effort to roll back caps on overdraft fees put in place under the Biden admin. Scott joined the House Service Committee Chairman French Hill, introducing a Congressional Review Act resolutions on February 13th aimed at overturning the Biden admin's Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's final rule, capping overdraft fees at a major bank and credit union. Tim Scott is fighting to bring back excessive predatory overdraft fees, lining the pockets of big banks at the expense of working families, the South Carolina Democratic Party wrote on X. South Carolinians deserve leaders who put the people for profits, not big banks looking to make larger profits. I still go back to questioning why we're not sitting and looking into why people are overdrawing. Because that's the first thing that I would look into if it was me. Scott said he was proud to lead the effort to overturn the misguided rule. The final rule was aimed at closing an outdated overdraft loophole that exempted overdraft fees as a finance charge. The CFPB said at the time that overdraft loans became highly profitable for banks as the practice of mailing and receiving checks diminished with the rise of electronic banking. Decades ago, overdraft fees were charged as a courtesy to honor paper checks that sent through the mail that arrived late. The agency said that the modern highly profitable overdraft loans increased consumer costs by billions of dollars. But again, if you're saying that you want to if you're saying that you want these to stay at $5 a pop, it's because you're sitting here realizing that people are going to be overdrafting a lot because of your shitty fucking economic policies. And I, for one, am not a fan of how a lot of banks do their overdraft fees either, especially TCF. TCF was the bad one. They're shut down, so I can say their name on air. I would not normally name a bank that I've done business with, but TCF, they were the bad ones, and they're out of business now. So with TCF, what they would do is, like, say you had a rent payment, and you knew that you were going to be short on that, and then you had to stop for a little bit of groceries, and you shopped around a little bit because milk was cheaper at the Quick Trip than it is at the grocery store. So you got like 5 boxes of mac and cheese at the grocery store, and then stopped at Quick Trip for the milk and the butter, and then realized that you needed gas at another Quick Trip, so you got that $10 worth of gas because you're strapped at that point. Under especially a lot of electronic systems, the 4 payments there, the 3 payments, the grocery store, the milk and eggs and butter, and the gas would all hit first, and then your big check would be the one that had the overdraft fee on it. Under TCF, they always look to get the big one first, so you overdrafted off that, and then they could pile up the overdraft fee 1, 2, 3 right after that. So addressing that, I actually think would be a good idea. Possibly not at the government level, but addressing that in and of itself would be seeing who can do this and who can't. Now, a lot of people left TCF because they did bullshit like that, but no, they're not introducing a law to raise your overdraft fees. They're just rolling back one. All right. I'm going to leave the Ukraine stuff out here because we're up over the 2-hour mark already, and I still got things I like, things that I hate. But before we headed out of here, I'd be doing a disservice if we didn't cover this story. One of the most joyless human beings in the world, Joy Reid, is leaving MSDNC as the network cancels her evening show. From Wyatt Grantham Phillips. Joy Reid is leaving MSDNC, the network's new president announced in a memo to staff on Monday, marking an end to the primetime show hosted by the progressive political analyst and broadcast news anchor. Reid's namesake show, The Readout, has been a fixture of MSDNC's evening programming since 2020. The hour-long newscast, held on weekend nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Reid conducts interviews with politicians and other newsmakers, diving into an extensive array of political issues and intersections between race, culture, and social justice. Reports about MSDNC canceling The Readout emerged online over the weekend, sparking outrage from supporters of the show. They have supporters? People watch MSNBC, really? Last I was told, they were too right-wing for the progressive people on X. Who point to the impact it had on elevating historically marginalized voices in today's media landscape. MSDNC President Rebecca Cutler later confirmed Reid's departure on Monday afternoon in a memo to staff viewed by the Associated Press. Yes, it is. I don't know where that's from, but yes, that is what that song is called. The Rainbow Connection. The reaction, by the way, extreme fear is driving the market right now. Rachel Maddow and other anchors lambasted MSDNC's decision to cancel Joy Reid at Alex Wagner's shows. Well, you should be lucky that you're not next, from Brian Stelter and Liam Riley over at CNN. Some of MSDNC's biggest stars are in extraordinary on-air fashion, rebuking management's decisions to cancel Joy. Oh, well, maybe they are next then. And Alex Wagner shows and lay off their production staffs. Rachel Maddow used part of her Monday night show, MSDNC's Most Watched Hour, Okay, when 6 people watch it, that's not really a most watched hour. Although, for MSDNC standards, that is high. To call the move a bad mistake. She said it feels indefensible that both of our non-white hosts in primetime are losing their shows, as is Katie Fang on the weekend. Well, you can quit. Maddow also said the impending layoffs are quite simply not the right way to treat people. Producers and other staff are being put in limbo, she said. The anxiety and the discombobulation is off the charts at a time when the job is already extra stressful and difficult. Dude, nobody watches TV anymore. Like I said, you're lucky you still have a job. Joy Reid can go make a podcast and 9 people will watch it. She'll be fine. But with that, we're done with our regular news, and we're going to move on to some things that I like and some things that I hate. But first, the rules of acquisition. So every week I read one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition, the cornerstones of the Ferengi religion. I talk about how it's used in its source canon, if I know it, because this is memory beta. So some of this I've not read the books that go with it. And how it can be used in our real lives, if in fact it can. Remember with some of these rules that Mr. Roddenberry was an avowed communist. Meaning he wrote a lot of these to make fun of capitalism, hyper-capitalism especially. But unfortunately, most of them wound up pretty based. There are a few of them out there that do fly in the face of what actual good capitalism would be, but most of them are pretty based. We left off with the 82nd rule of acquisition. The flimsier the product, the higher the price. For reasons both of high quality flimsy product like a Fabergé egg and a product that you're going to be replacing a lot. Like a flimsy shelf. We move on to the 85th rule of acquisition. Never let the competition know what you're thinking. Which should be pretty base obvious if you're going to be capitalistic in any sense, because if the competition knows what you're thinking, then they're going to make the same product and try to get it out before you do. This is from a DF9 reference book, The Ferengi Rules of Acquisition, and yeah, that one's a pretty obvious one. Never let the competition know what you're thinking, because otherwise they will make the same profit that you should be making before you do. Pretty fucking smart. Let's do a couple things that I like and a few things that I hate. Alright, things that I like. Number 1, if you are paying attention on Wednesday nights, you know that I have switched to The Legend of Zelda after finishing BioShock. So, I have brought forward, I don't know if this is going to ding me on copyright or not, but the official trailer for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for the HD version. Because that is what I am playing. So let's look at what the original trailer for this looked like when it got released. And I'll tell you some of my initial thoughts because I've only played 2 hours of it, but I do kind of like it. And I like the conversation it's sparking. I'm actually titling tomorrow night's stream Stun and Mash B. Love you, Mr. Behavior. Love you, Vong. How far will you go to save your friend? Legend begins here. So, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Very interested to see where the story goes. I am looking forward to seeing how this one does, especially being the official first entry of the series. Let's do a little bit more. From NPR, I'm not going to do the NPR voice for this because this isn't things I like, things that I hate. How is Pope Francis doing? His condition remains critical but stable, the Vatican says. Are we back to Rainbow Connection again? Oh. Apparently I got backed up in that somehow. In the stream over on Game Chops. Look, what I'll say with this is I hope that he does well. I hope that he still lives a long and healthy life. Double pneumonia is nothing to sneeze at. But yes, he is still officially alive at this point. We're not looking for a new pope, but I know that they're probably putting feelers out because I think the end is near on this one. And I think a lot of people weren't a huge fan of this one either. So there are probably going to be some opinions in the comments, in the chat afterwards. Over the Marxist tendencies of the current pope. The one who says that we should tear down borders, as he lives in a gigantic walled city, of course. Alright, let's see. A singer gets ripped for changing "O Canada" lyrics to protest Trump. From Amanda Harding over at the Daily Wire, which, I mean, it should be. Your national anthem is to honor your country, not to disparage another country. I understand protest songs. I don't like a lot of them, but I understand you have your right, your ability to do so. I think a lot of them are just a pain in my ass. The singer who performed the national anthem, Canadian national anthem, prior to the Four Nations Face-Off championship game on Thursday night, changed the lyric to "O Canada," confirming it was done to protest U.S. President Donald Trump, talking about the possibility of making her homeland the 51st states. Fans in Boston could be heard booing the song, which comes after the Canadian fans booed the Star-Spangled Banner at a previous tournament matchup in Montreal last week. Chantal Kreviazak changed the lyric from "All of Us in Command" to "That Only Us Command," telling the Associated Press in an email statement that she did it because "I believe in democracy, and a sovereign nation should not have to defend itself against tyranny and fascism, eh? We should only be getting our tyranny and fascism at home, eh? I'm someone who grew up on music that spoke to the heart in the moment, and it shaped me as a songwriter and really as a human being," she said via her publicist, Adam Gonshore. "I don't think it would be authentic to me to be given a world stage, eh? And not express myself and be true to myself, eh?" Kreviazuk followed up by writing the phrase "That Only Us Command" with mascara on her hand. So, and yeah, she should be ripped for that. Alright, a CPAC poll, which I normally don't put a lot of stock in. Frankly, I think CPAC is the cringiest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. But I like the results off this. Now, I'm not sold on Vance. I'll come back out and say this. But a lot of people that I don't like got really, really low ratings off of this stuff, and what I really liked about this was no fucking Bushites. Not a Bushite to be seen anywhere on this fucking thing. So, straw poll result when asked who they think should be the 28th nominee, CPAC attendees chose Vice President Vance at 61%. Steve Bannon, 12%. Ron DeSantis, 7%. Ron DeSantis should be at like 0%. You guys know my feelings on Ron DeSantis. I was very open about that. Marco Rubio, no. Stefanik would be a maybe in my book, but I'm not really sold on that one either. Trump Jr., absolutely not. Gabbard, absolutely not. Ramaswamy, absolutely not. Sarah Sanders, no, I actually want her to go back to being press secretary because she was hilarious at it. Rick Scott, absolutely not. No, no. Haley, fuck no. Abbott, thank God, was a 0%. Undecided, 4%. So, again, with the exception of Haley actually being on there is the only Bushite. I missed that the first reading through this. I did like the fact that there were almost no other Bushites on this anywhere. At least open Bushites. Alright. Trump terminates backwards and unfair New York City congestion toll. From Zach Jewell. Now, I don't typically want to interrupt people who suck when they're doing things that are detrimental to themselves. And I really don't want to encourage people to go to New York because it sucks, but realistically, especially if you're running up the Eastern Seaboard, you got to go through New York. So this in and of itself, especially, is a matter of interstate commerce. So I can see why he did it. I'm not 100% sold on it. I can see why it's good. Also, President Trump announced Wednesday that the New York Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul's steep congestion toll in New York City is dead. Sean Duffy wrote a letter to Hochul on Wednesday informing the governor that the U.S. Department of Transportation's Federal Highway Admin is terminating approval for the congestion pricing plan, the New York Post reported. The Department of Transportation initially approved the pilot program in November, when Biden was still in office. New York State's congestion pricing plan is a slap in the face to working class Americans and small business owners, Duffy wrote, adding that the plan is backwards and unfair. So one of the other things that I do want to point out with this, with the fact that they bring up the small business owners, is that New York is a major tourist destination, and yes, making it more expensive than it already is to go there is hard on the American people, especially in New York, who are just trying to scrape out a living. I can't get behind their decision to live in New York because the Yankees suck. But it's what they like, so, I mean, it's something that they're going to do no matter what. And yes, I'm sure that they like to have that, both that tourist money coming in from people in there who would, at that point, have to pay the congestion tax, or the people who are passing through. If you can find a parking spot while you're there, good fucking luck, then yes, I'm sure that a transport driver, a trucker, a person traveling through on vacation would like to see the little bodega and get the authentic street food, the paper-thin pizza, the stuff like that. So, yeah. I would rather have a state be able to monitor its own and set its own taxation rates, and then when they inevitably hurt the people can come back and say, well, this sucks, you're out of office. But in this case, this is hurting a lot of people who otherwise would be getting a lot of cross-border traffic. Something non-political that I enjoy, even though it came from the Daily Wire, musical about Loretta Lynn's life is in works. I like Loretta Lynn. I liked a lot of the songs, especially a lot of the stuff that she did with Conway Twitty. She was an excellent duet partner for a lot of people, though. From Katie Jerkovich. A musical about late country legend Loretta Lynn's life is currently in the works, with Tony Award winner Sutton Foster picked to take on the lead role. The show, currently titled Coal Miner's Daughter, will be on the stage adaptation inspired by the hit 1980 movie about her autobiography by the same name, which deal with the late star's rise from her humble roots in rural Kentucky to become a country music superstar, according to the Hollywood Reporter. I would go and see this, by the way. It will include songs from Loretta's career like I'm a Honky Tonk Girl and Coal Miner's Daughter, and share stories from Loretta's life beyond the film's ending, per release about the project. So is this going to be a film or is this going to be a stage production? Either way, I would go and see this. 100%. Loretta Lynn passed in 22. I'm surprised I missed that on Contemporary, because I like Loretta Lynn. But yeah, if you want to go see the musical, it's going to be coming. And now we're going to do some things that I hate. Starting with Fox Business, more Fox News. Again, ironic given the fact that I have a turn off Fox sticker. Hooters. Hooters is looking at possible bankruptcy filing. From Hazelyn Murphy. A bankruptcy filing could be potentially on the menu for Hooters of America in the near future. The company is looking to possibly file bankruptcy as a means of restructuring the restaurant chain and tackling its debt, Bloomberg reported on Friday, citing an unnamed source. Ropes & Gray has reportedly been brought on board for preparations for that potential move, and according to the outlet, they could file court papers on Hooters' behalf at the coming 2 months to kick off the restructuring if the restaurant chain decides to take that step. Now, what would be surprising to a lot of people is I've never been to a Hooters. There are 410 globally per the restaurant chain's website. I've never been to one. I think it'd be kind of fun at some point, and I remember a lot of kids my age in high school wearing Hooters shirts around school. Not the tank tops, but like the, hey, I was there and I got the t-shirt kind of thing. Delightfully tacky and unrefined was the catchphrase for that. From what I understood, it wasn't really great food. And the girls were not always great to look at, but it was still a little bit of a fun atmosphere. I had an uncle that went there every time he went to Florida. He went to the place. I'm not 100% surprised by what's happening with that. A lot of the people who would normally go to Hooters and make a buttload of money, I think, are going to OnlyFans at this point. And I think a lot of that actually is what killed the restaurant, because you know, you can go sit in front of your webcam and do basically the same thing as what the Hooters girls are doing, but not have to worry about your ass getting slapped while you're on shift. And I think that's what ultimately threw it down the road. A lot of people are bringing up various crazy things. One person said, start bringing back older ladies to work at Hooters to give a mommy kink to Gen Z. I don't know enough about Gen Z to see if they have a mommy kink generally or not, but that would be one to that. So, I do think that some of the appeal has gone away from some of that, especially in the Me Too movement too, and I think that's going to have a hard part of it. And it kind of sucks, because while it was really tacky, and I'm more of a man who enjoys the woman's behind than the boobs, I think that there was a niche place for that in American culture, in Americana. Alright. Other things that I hate. Democrats mock conservatives with the latest stunt. The conception begins at erection bill. In a move of desperation, 2 Ohio Democrats introduced a bill to mock pro-life conservatives, which, by the way, this didn't start in Ohio, this started in Mississippi, so the Wire got that one wrong, titled the Conception Begins at Erection Act. The bill, proposed by Democrat state reps Anita Somani and Tristan Rader, is less a serious legislative proposal and more a pathetic attempt at political commentary. According to the legislation, Ohio men could face fines of up to $10,000, for the sin of ejaculating without intent to conceive. This is what Democrats have been reduced to on the important political issues of sex and conception, instead of offering a substantive counter-argument to the pro-life movement. They've opted for what can be described as legislative clowning. So, bill has no chance of passing. They would have no chance of enforcement if it did pass. Like the person said, it's a political stunt. This is one where, again, I come back and say that I will probably stand at odds with most of my more traditional conservative people that I'm still friends with, but I do believe in IVF, and I think it's a great way for people to continue to try to conceive. I understand your objections because of the frozen embryos that don't get used. I just don't care. Pro-life groups, advocates issue warnings over Trump order on IVF because, yes, this is what we need to fight about right now. From Amanda Prestigiacomo, pro-life organizations and activists issued warnings and criticisms over Trump's executive orders to expand access to IVF, which he signed on Monday. The popular but controversial fertility method has sparked concern from religious and pro-life Americans who have moral objections to IVF, especially due to the number of embryos that are destroyed in the IVF process. Lila Rose, pro-life activist and founder of Live Action, reacted Monday to the order, arguing that IVF is not pro-life, even though it's being specifically used to create life. And again, I understand where you're coming from. I understand your argument. But I want people to have a lot more babies. And in some cases, that's the only way that they can do this. We need more babies. Lots of them. Many of them. Trump just signed an order expanding IVF. She posted on X, only 7% of human embryos created by IVF will result in a live birth. 93% of those lives are frozen indefinitely, miscarried, or aborted. Hold on. Back up. Why? Okay. Explain the logic to me. Explain it to me like I'm 7. Why would you go through the effort and the expense? Because from what I understand, it's ridiculously expensive. I've never had to do it. It's ridiculously expensive to do IVF. Takes a while. It's, I believe, invasive too, because don't they have to go in there and get the eggs? I don't know enough about it, about the process of doing it, to be able to comment and say, but from what I understand, it's expensive, invasive, to get all these embryos that they can make to implant. Why would you go through it, get it implanted surgically again, and then abort it? That's dumb. That's moronic. Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, warned that regulations need to be put in place for IVF, but said the organization does not outright object to ethical fertility treatments. So, this is what conservatives are going to argue about now. Keep it up like this, and Roe will be back to being reinstated. Speaking of reproductive things, my governor, in his infinite wisdom, Wisconsin Democratic governor proposes law replacing mother with inseminated person in state law. And no, this is not hyperbole by Fox News like they usually do. I read the statement. He actually did this. He actually proposed this in the budget. From Rachel Wolf. Tony Evers is facing backlash for introducing a budget recommendation that changes the word mother to inseminated person and paternity to parentage in certain parts of state law. Your role as a human being, being reduced to the fact that somebody blew their load in you. Coming from a Democrat of all things. Jesus Christ almighty. We're living in clown world. Something happened when somebody shot Harambe and just ripped a hole in the universe. And we have to be living in an alternate reality. I refuse to believe that half this shit is real anymore. Inseminated persons, good God. Parent is more humanizing than inseminated persons. And it's gender neutral. All right. This happened in Norwich, Connecticut, and people are stupid enough to believe it was a Trump supporter that did it. Yeah, it wasn't. It was the right direction this time. I know a lot of the times when they do the hoax hate ones like these, they put the windmill in the wrong direction. That was at least in the right direction. But no, I don't believe for a second that was any Trump supporter that did that. All right, and the last one that I have on this, Sassafras, who is a heavy MAGA X account, put this one out. So this is what liberals are going to be doing on February 20th. First of all, it's not liberals, it's progressives. I suggest you go out there and shop to your heart's content on that day. Show them that we are the majority. I wish I could, but I just dropped an exorbitant amount of money to keep this roof over my head. But here is the first collective action. Economic blackout, 24 hours, Friday, February 28th, from 12 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. Turn off the economy. Show who really holds the power, us. What can you do? Buy only essentials, absolute necessities, food, medicine, emergency supplies, but the goal is to buy nothing. If you must spend, only support small local businesses. Why? Corporations, banks only care about their sacred bottom line. So do small businesses, by the way, just so you know. It's how they keep their fucking lights on. You can disrupt the economy for just one day, which I doubt. To send a powerful message, if they fail to listen, the next blackout will be longer. Make history together. February 20th, 24-hour economic blackout begins. Do not. No purchases in stores, online, no Amazon, Walmart, which I already don't do. Nowhere. No fast food, gas, major retailers. No credit or debit cards for non-essential spending. We can do this together. The only thing that I have to say about that is I don't believe that the progressives that are doing this have that level of self-control. But apparently, that is what they're going to do. So, with that, I would like to actually go out and spend on February 20th, but again, bunch of money to keep the roof over my head. Unfortunately, it comes on that first day of the month, even though I actually did already pay it. I don't get paid again until after that next part of the month, so I can probably throw a little bit of something at the local Woodman's. I don't know. Anyway, we're done. We're out of here. Hey, look, I only went 2.5 hours this time. And I started late, too. There was an errand that had to be run. It was important. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't important. You guys know me. Because believe it or not, we used to get out of here in an hour and a half. Now, doing this once a week now, I understand why this is a longer than what it was when it was a daily show, but at 9:30, I'm ready to go to sleep. All right, but with that, we're out of here. Thanks so much, everybody who came by and hung out, chatted in the live chat, kept everything going, and supported on the after party as well, with the replay being available on YouTube and audio platforms tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, we'll get those up and ready for you. So if you like what you saw, you're only able to catch a part of it, do make sure you go check out those replays. Links will be in the Discord and on X. You can go follow that. So otherwise, we will see you here next week. I do want to see a 2-hour news show, so people in the Trump admin, people who are against the Trump admin, settle down for a little while. Let's actually not load up the news with a bunch of crap and a bunch of stupid stuff. Can we do that for a week? Can we? Maybe? Please. Yeah, I know better than that, but we're going to head out of here. If you are on Twitch, stick around. We're going to go find somebody to go and raid out of this, and we're going to go video games because, well, we just did 2 hours of news, and I'm sure that you don't want to do 2 hours more of news. Is there anybody on there that we like? Tears of the Kingdom, maybe. Rainbow Six. That's a huge streamer. I don't want to follow that one. New Super. We'll do that one. Castle SR. We'll go to that one. Thanks everybody for coming by, hanging out. We'll see you here next time for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.